Investors and crypto insiders, what I'm about to reveal is shaking the XRP community and being completely ignored by mainstream media, yet it could redefine the trajectory of digital assets forever. Jake Claver, a voice with serious credibility in crypto circles, just dropped a bold comment on XRP that has everyone talking, and the implications are far more structural than casual observers realize. This changes everything, because when an influential analyst signals attention, it triggers a ripple effect that no algorithm, chart, or headline can fully capture. WTF is happening behind the scenes that the public isn't seeing? Why are institutions like BlackRock, the SEC, IMF, and even top-tier banks quietly analyzing XRP while retail chatter focuses on short-term volatility? Prepare for shock, because this is not about price. It's about operational adoption, institutional alignment, and systemic relevance unfolding quietly but powerfully. Before we dive deeper, hit like, subscribe, and enable notifications, because this is insider-level insight being delivered at a depth the mainstream will never touch. XRP is no longer just a token traded on exchanges. It is an infrastructure asset quietly being considered for high-volume, compliant, cross-border liquidity, institutional settlement corridors, and even AI-enhanced operational systems. What the public sees as speculation is actually structural momentum, where timing, authority, and operational readiness converge. Ask yourself, if XRP were irrelevant, would Jake Claver dedicate attention to it? Would global banks, national regulators, and financial institutions continue to monitor Ripple's developments closely? Timing is everything, and the next moves are already in motion behind closed doors, far beyond charts and social media hype. Now let's break down the data, authority, and structural signals that make Jake Claver's comment on XRP so significant, because this is where speculation ends and systemic insight begins. XRP has consistently proven operational readiness through live RippleNet corridors, on-demand liquidity adoption, and partnerships with major financial institutions, demonstrating it can handle high-volume, compliant transactions at scale. Regulatory clarity is gradually improving, with ongoing SEC developments reducing legal uncertainty, aligning perfectly with growing institutional interest. Consider the authority involved. Jake Claver's analysis carries weight in crypto strategy circles. BlackRock continues exploring digital assets, and global regulators monitor tokenized liquidity frameworks closely. Ask yourself, why would Claver highlight XRP if it were irrelevant? Why are banks, national regulators, and institutional actors still referencing Ripple in internal discussions about cross-border liquidity? The signals are not only clear, they demand attention from anyone looking to understand where the next major structural move in crypto is forming. Operational adoption is equally critical. RippleNet continues expanding across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, embedding XRP into real-world liquidity corridors and stress testing it at scale. Institutional trials and integrations demonstrate that XRP is not hypothetical. It is functioning as a bridge asset capable of supporting complex operational models. Meanwhile, retail investors remain fixated on short-term price swings, oblivious to the structural and institutional momentum quietly building in the background. XRP is moving from a perceived speculative asset to a systemically essential infrastructure component, and those who recognize these signals now will gain a massive asymmetric advantage. This is not hype. It is structural reality forming at the intersection of authority, adoption, and timing. Now we enter the critical phase where catalysts and FUD collide, because every asymmetric opportunity passes through a period where the noise is louder than the signal, and uninformed investors are actively misled. The catalyst here is subtle but monumental. Operational adoption, institutional alignment, and regulatory clarity are all converging simultaneously, and XRP sits squarely at the epicenter. Imagine RippleNet corridors scaling fully, ODL adoption ramping up, and AI-enhanced liquidity systems quietly integrating XRP behind the scenes. When these pieces come together, the market reaction will not be gradual. It will be sudden, violent, and nearly impossible to ignore. This is the type of catalyst that arrives quietly, flipping switches behind closed doors, only noticeable once the effects are irreversible. Prepare for shock, because this is exactly how systemic financial moves unfold, and most investors are still distracted by social media noise and short-term charts. And now the FUD defense, because doubt will arrive in waves. Critics will scream that XRP is centralized, that regulatory uncertainty remains, that institutions will never rely on a token, and that nothing is happening because price action is quiet. That is exactly what was said about Bitcoin before ETFs, Amazon before cloud dominance, and AI before it became infrastructure. Institutions do not need headlines to validate usage. They operate quietly, efficiently, and under regulatory oversight. XRP has been stress tested across real corridors, compliance is baked in, and operational risk is mitigated. Centralization arguments collapse under regulatory scrutiny, and transparency criticisms vanish when transparency becomes a designed feature, not a flaw. Ask yourself, why did the SEC fight so hard if XRP were irrelevant? Why did Ripple continue global expansion instead of folding? WTF do people expect convergence to look like? Headlines and fireworks? The reality is far quieter, far more insidious, and far more profitable for those positioned early. Now we arrive at the price justification and the final warning, because this is where structural reality meets market mechanics and the implications become unavoidable. XRP is not being priced like a speculative altcoin. It is being positioned as systemic infrastructure capable of powering cross-border liquidity, institutional settlement corridors, and AI-enhanced operational models. Consider the magnitude. Trillions in daily cross-border transactions, algorithmic liquidity flows, and legacy system constraints creating massive inefficiencies. XRP is designed as a neutral, high-speed bridge capable of executing these flows efficiently, securely, and compliantly. BlackRock, JP Morgan, and other institutional giants do not allocate capital to uncertainty, and Ripple's survival through regulatory scrutiny, combined with operational proof points, positions XRP as one of the few assets ready to meet this emerging demand. $100 is not fantasy. It is the structural entry point for informed actors before adoption, AI integration, and corridor expansion trigger a massive revaluation. Timing is everything. XRP exists in a narrow window where institutional alignment, operational adoption, and regulatory clarity converge. Hesitation, disbelief, or delay could mean missing a generational asymmetric opportunity. The mainstream media will continue to ignore or dismiss this because they cannot simplify a structural institutional narrative into headlines. Ripple is embedding quietly into real-world systems. AI applications are being considered for liquidity management, and regulatory developments remove lingering uncertainty that once kept cautious players on the sidelines. When this convergence manifests fully, price will not move gradually. It will react violently to adoption, AI deployment, and institutional demand. Those who dismiss XRP now will later ask how they missed the structural signals, and the answer will be painfully obvious. You ignored authority, infrastructure, and timing. This is your final warning. The window for strategic positioning is closing. XRP's next phase is about unavoidable systemic relevance, and even subtle AI and institutional alignment magnifies the stakes. You are either strategically positioned to benefit from this convergence, or you are watching from the sidelines as others capture generational gains. Timing, authority, and operational readiness are all here, and the next chapter for XRP is already underway. In conclusion, what is unfolding with XRP is far beyond ordinary speculation. It is a structural, institutional, and technological convergence quietly reshaping the financial landscape. Jake Claver's bold commentary, combined with growing attention from BlackRock, major banks, and regulators, signals relevance and momentum that mainstream media cannot and will not convey. XRP is evolving from a digital token into systemic infrastructure capable of powering cross-border liquidity, institutional settlement, and AI-enhanced financial operations. This changes everything because the market is on the cusp of a silent but monumental shift where operational readiness, adoption, and regulatory clarity converge into unstoppable momentum. This is your moment to act decisively. XRP's corridors are live, institutional interest is accelerating, and regulatory risk is diminishing. Those who understand the structural setup and position accordingly will gain a generational advantage, while those who hesitate will watch from the sidelines as this quietly powerful asset moves towards systemic relevance. Timing is everything. Clarity is power, and XRP's next chapter is already in motion. Position wisely, act decisively, and do not let this opportunity slip through your fingers.